all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with these know he is also one with every other. 1 minute silence. Kindly keep your mic on mute.
Brother Sahu, kindly mute your microphone. Okay, thank you.
Come back. We may proceed.
Yeah. Good evening to you all. Today our speaker is Sister Biba. She is very well known to all of us, particularly delivering lectures. So no need of introduction of Sister Bibaji. Let us discuss some points what we have read last time by Professor C.A. Sinde. The important points are, you have proved your affection. It is the wordings of the Mahatma in letter number 37. Old book 37, so also new book, new chronological edition. In that book, Professor Sinde described how Mahatma, after returning from retreat, he directed his one most trusted disciple, Jwalpur, to write a letter to AP Senate. In this letter, Jwalpur, whatever instruction given to him, he wrote it in the understanding, to understand the language of Englishman, particularly Sinnett and Hume. So the wording is like this: you have proved your affection and sincerity by your zeal. The impulse you have personally given to the cause we love will not be checked. Therefore, the fruit of it will not withhold when your balance of causes and effects, your karma, is adjusted. Second point, in unselfishly and at personal risk, laboring for your neighbor, you have most effectually worked for yourself. 1 year has wrought a great change in your heart. The man of 1880 would scarcely recognize the man of 1881, where they confronted. Compare them, then good friend and brother, that you may fully realize what time has done, or rather what you have done with time. Then another event, to do this, meditates alone, with the magic mirror of memory to gaze into. Thus, you not only see the lights and shadows of the past, but the possible brightness of the future as well. Thus, in time, will you come to see the ego of Aphrodite, its naked reality, and thus also you shall hear from me direct at the earliest practical opportunity, for we are not ungrateful, and even Nirvana cannot obliterate good. Good is all capital. So these are the words of Master K.H., which was written to the language of Senate. This letter number 37. It words on few important points. Now I request Sister Vibhaji to place her explanation on letter 38.
Thank you, Brother Pradeep ji, and a very good evening and namaste to all of you. So today we will begin with this letter number 38, which was written by Mahatma M to AP Senate. And he wrote it, it is written in the old, in Mahatma letter to AP Senate, there it is mentioned that it was written in February of 1882. So these letters, they are actually available, the original print, the color print of these original letters is available on the Mahatma Letters portal, which is being hosted by the Theosophical Society of America. So I have taken the liberty to share those images with you. I would like to share my screen and show you the same. Okay, I hope my screen is visible. Okay, so this is the page number 1 and 2, and we have the following pages. The page number 3 and 4. This letter was written by Mahatma M on 2 sheets of white paper. He wrote on both the sides, and he used red ink. So we must make a note that, you know, the letters, when we say they are written, they are not written in the hand of the Mahatma by putting the pen to the paper. It is written by a process of precipitation. Okay, and we are fortunate now we are able to see these letters, the images, and the originals are available in the British Library in UK. So moving on to this study of letter number 38. This is a very important letter wherein it, you know, 2 points are main. The summary of this letter I will tell you that one, it refers to making of the all women branch of Theosophical Society, and we will see what happened, why it was not formed. And the second part is Mahatma Ji tells that to whom this knowledge can be given, the teachings, or who can be his chela. Okay. So we'll start with this. The words written on the slide, they are verbatim from the letter. So let me read this. In the beginning of the letter, Mahatma M writes, "Your illustrious friend was simply feeling sad at the thought of the great..." Sorry, any question? Okay, I will continue. "Your illustrious friend was simply feeling sad at the thought of the great disappointment KH is sure to experience when he returns amongst us. The first retrospective glance at the work he has so much at heart will show him such samples of mutual feeling exchanged as the two herein enclosed. The undignified, bitter, sarcastic tone of one will give him as little cause to rejoice as the undignified, foolish, and childish tone of the other." So here, this word, illustrious friend, it is referring to how AP Senate had addressed the master when he was giving a talk earlier in 1881. So Mahatma M is humorously using the same word while he is replying to Sinnett. Now we know that Mahatma KH had gone on a retreat in October of 1881. But while he was gone, during his absence, he did not want that the work of the Theosophical Society should be slow or it should be hampered. And so he had requested Mahatma M to continue the work. And Mahatma M, he loved Mahatma KH so much. In the earlier letters, it is written, he refers to him as his dear brother. So he agrees to this work, although he does not like writing, we know that. And then he realizes that his ideas and communications, they are many times misunderstood and misinterpreted by Sinnett and Hume. So in spite of this, the communication continues, but this misunderstanding which happens with Hume and Sinnett, so they reply in very in sarcastic tones. They give very bitter replies to the Mahatmas. And sometimes they write in a very childish and a foolish manner. So the actual idea they are not able to grasp, and they keep exchanging these bitter and foolish ideas with the Mahatma. And that is why the real work of the Theosophical Society, that is getting hampered. So moving to the next slide. Here Mahatma Ji writes that I heed it not, advising you to do the same, and see no satire where none is meant, and which is but frankness in speech, and the correct definition of the general state of your feelings towards the natives. Your solicitor knows better, of course. If the paragraph in question is not libellous, then all I can say is that a complete recodification of your libel law is very much needed. So here Mahatma M, he is telling Sinnett that he will overlook all the mistakes, what he has written in his letter, of being childish, being undignified, and the bitterness. And he advises Sinnett also not to misinterpret and find satire in Mahatma M's letters, because that is frank speech, that is not sarcastic. So the situation is like this, that in the earlier letter which Mahatma M had written to Sinnett, that was the Mahatma letter number 114, which is in the chronological order, the letter 32. So in that letter, Mahatma M had written to him that the real feelings of Sinnett, they are like this. He feels very nauseous when he looks at the locals. Okay, so there was a local person, a Bengali Babu, who had delivered that letter. And looking at these locals, this person, Mr. Sinnett, he feels very nauseous. So you see, we cannot put a facade. Mahatmas can look right through it. They know what are our real feelings. But when Sinnett read that letter, he took offense. He was not happy. And in his reply, he wrote some incorrect and false things, perhaps about that local or about the Mahatmas. So we don't have Sinnett's letter. We can only assume, because from this reply, it is clear that Mahatma M is telling he has written something which is libel. Libel means writing a slanderous thing which can be prosecuted in the court of law. Okay, so it is actually a legal crime. You cannot write like that about somebody. And this is what Mahatma M is cautioning him about. Okay, that you cannot write such things. Then further, Mahatma M says, you will certainly have trouble with her about the female branch. Her scorn for the sex has no bounds, and she can hardly be persuaded that any good can ever come from that quarter. I will be frank with you again, neither myself nor any of us, KH being entirely left out of the question, would consent to become the founders, let alone the conductors, of a female branch. We all having had enough of our Annies. So this is the main thing. At that point, in the early days of the society, there was this idea, this inclination of creating an all-female branch. In the previous letter, Mahatma has mentioned about this to Senate. But here in this letter, he is saying that this intention to establish the all-women branch in the Theosophical Society, Madame Blavatsky, she will never want this because she has extreme dislike. She has extreme, to the extent of contempt. She would not like to have a branch which is only for women. And she would never agree that this will be beneficial. So we need to understand why Madame Blavatsky would have such a kind of opinion or an idea. So let us see what is her temperament, what was her life, why she was so against of this all-women branch. Now, we know that Madame Blavatsky, she was born in 1831 in Russia. At that time, the Russian women, or the entire society at that time, women were considered subservient. They were not given the same education as men. Okay. In spite of this, HPB, she defied all the customs and all the traditions which were meant for women in the society. And she displayed great mental and psychical abilities. Also, she had wide-ranging knowledge, even though she was not formally educated. She challenged all the dogmas of religion, the misconceptions of science, and also she opposed materialism. So you see, her nature was very courageous and fierce. Due to her courage, she was called lion-hearted. And she started this, she was the co-founder of the Theosophical Society. This is an altruistic society. And she started it when there was the height of materialism in the general society. And you can see that despite she did not know the language, she started it in a foreign country. So such was HPB. Temperamentally, she would flare up very quickly. She had a temper, but she had a very large and forgiving heart. And her loyalty towards her teacher, that was unblemished, totally loyal to her teachers. So such kind of temperament HPB had. And this was diametrically opposite to the women of that time, the 19th century. They were docile, they were treated subservient. So perhaps this was the reason that she was not in favor of having a all-women branch in the Theosophical Society. Further, in the next point, Mahatma M is saying that none of the Mahatmas would be agreeable to start this all-women branch. And Mahatma H least of all. So he says that they all having had enough of our Annies. Now Annie is a prefix. It is added to the name of a nun in Tibetan Buddhism, just like sister is added in Christianity to the nuns. So when we speak about all-women branch, when we are talking about gender, there are a few points we should keep in mind. So I would like to point out these things, these factors, that we may say that yes, there are temperamental differences between male and female. But this classification, it is applicable only to personality. That is the physical body. It is part of the lower quaternary. The individuality, or that which is our higher self, the Atma Buddhi Manas, that has no gender. The same individuality, it will incarnate as a male or as a female in successive incarnations. So this form that is there, the gender, the physical body, the gender of the physical body, that serves only one purpose. It helps to unfold the divine virtues or the divine qualities. So the qualities, divine qualities like courage, strength, nurturing, compassion. So it may be that one form is more suitable to unfold certain qualities and another form is more suitable for unfolding other qualities. So that is the only difference. But in the end, all the divine qualities are unfolded and assimilated in the individuality. So this is one point we must keep in mind about gender. And the second thing is that the male and female principle, they are inherent in every being, in every incarnated being. We can call it yin or yang, or we can call it Shiv Shakti, anything that is active passive principle, consciousness and power. So all these, they symbolize duality. And duality is the objective reality which we can see. We see duality everywhere in nature, right? And this duality, it seeks equilibrium. It seeks perfect harmony. This is unity. And unity is the subjective reality. So this male-female principle, it is inherent even in man and even in women. This is the second point we must keep in our mind when we are talking about gender. And moreover, adaptship, it can be attained by any person, whether he is a male or whether she is a female. In the Theosophical Society, we have Madame Blavatsky, Colonel Olcott, and even other great theosophists like T. Subbarao and Mavlankar. They have affirmed that women adepts are there. And they personally knew many women, initiated women. Okay. So anyway, the object of the all-female branch was not to make adepts, but we must understand that women also can reach adeptship. Okay. Now, the last thing which I would like to mention here is that the all-women branch, it was not needed because, see, men and women, they are equally admitted in the Theosophical Society. That is the first object of the society, right? That there should be, it is a nucleus of universal brotherhood without distinction of race, creed, sex, and caste and color. So there would be no distinction. So this is the idea or the inclination what HPB and Mahatma M had about the all-female branch. Now, further regarding the same, moving to the next slide. So Mahatma M is also saying at the same time that we confess that a great good may result of such a movement. The females having such an influence over their children and the men in the houses. You being such an old and experienced hand in that direction could, with Mr. Hume's help, be of immense use to KH from within the area of whose lovable nature, with the exception of his sister, females were always excluded, and love for his country and humanity reigned alone. He always felt the need of enrolling women, yet would never meddle with them. There is a chance for you to help him. So you see, although he was not inclined, Mahatma M was not inclined for a women-only branch, but he confesses, he agrees that yes, a great benefit could, the Theosophical Society could benefit greatly by a all-women branch. Why? Because women have great influence over their families. We know that it is the truth. A mother is the first guru of her children, right? We know that a wife has considerable influence over her husband. We can see that how close a father-daughter bonding can be. And fathers, they will go to any length to fulfill the wish of their dear daughter. And same goes for the relation of brother and sister. So it is not without reason that there is a saying that if you teach a man, you teach only one person. But if you teach a woman, you are teaching the whole family. So if women were to join the Theosophical Society, the teachings of the society would spread very soon to entire families and societies. And Mahatma KH, he was always inclined to have this women branch. He was very amenable to the idea. But he did not proceed. He had not known many women in his life. The only woman he knew was his sister. And apart from that, all his love and affection was showered on his country and on humanity, right? So Master M says that Sinnett and Hume can help because they are family people, they are married, they know how much influence women have in the family. So they could help Mahatma KH in this regard for creating the women-only branch. Now, moving on further, Mahatma M says, so this was all about the women branch, but I guess that the women branch was never created. And today, men and women are equally admitted into the society. In the letter, Mahatma M has further said, I say then that it is the vilification and abuse of the founders, the general misconception of the aims and objects of the society that paralyze its progress, nothing else. There is no want of definitiveness in these objects. There is no want of definitiveness in these objects were they but properly explained. The members would have plenty to do. Were they to pursue reality with half the fervor they do mirage. I am sorry to find you comparing theosophy to a painted house on the stage, whereas in the hands of the true philanthropist and theosophist, it might become as strong as an impregnable fort. So here we see that, the progress of theosophical work was not happening as desired. Master M emphasizes that this work was not progressing because many members during the early days of the society, they were heaping abuse on the founders. They were slandering them. They wrote disparaging articles and a similar speech about the society founders. The society founders, we know Madame Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott, they were the co-founders, but on the inner planes, Mahatma M and Mahatma KH, they were the real founders of the society. So at the time the society was founded in November 1875, the chief objects of the society, what were they? I will just read them out. It was similar to the objects that are there today with just a few difference in the words. The first object was to form the nucleus of a universal brotherhood of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color. The second object was to promote the study of Aryan and other Eastern literatures, religions, and sciences. The wordings of second object are changed. Now, currently, they are to encourage the comparative study of religion, philosophy, and science. And the third object in that early days, it was to investigate the unexplained laws of nature and the psychical powers of man. So you see all these three objects, they are very definite and there is no vagueness in them at all. That means you cannot get confused what you have to do. They had set a huge task for the members. There was a lot of work to be done. They need to understand what is universal brotherhood. They need to internalize the teachings, the theosophic teachings, and then they have to live a theosophic life by practical service. But this was not happening. Instead of doing this real work of the society, the members, they were more interested to come in contact with the Mahatmas. They wanted to acquire these occult powers. So this was a mirage. This was never going to happen because that was not the object of the society. So that is what Mahatma M is saying here. Okay. Now, further Mahatma M says that actually he is very sorry for Sinnett. He says that Sinnett is not able to understand what is the true value of this theosophical knowledge. He's comparing theosophic knowledge to a house painted on the stage. This is something temporarily built for a performance and thereafter it will be dismantled. But whereas theosophic knowledge, it is like a strong, impregnable fort. We will see what it means. This theosophic knowledge, when it is assimilated by a true philanthropist or a true theosophist. Now, who is a true theosophist? He who will consider the good of humanity above his own. At the top quality or the ideal quality in a true theosophist is absolute selflessness, total altruism. So by such a person, when he becomes a living embodiment of theosophic knowledge, he's living his life as theosophy, then his spiritual unfoldment is bound to happen. His mind, his feelings, and his actions, they become purified. And his mind becomes like a strong, impregnable fort. Impregnable means that which cannot be breached. So this pure mind, it cannot be breached, meaning it will not revert to selfishness. It cannot revert to falsehood again. So the spiritual unfoldment which will happen if you assimilate these theosophic teachings, then you will not revert back to the selfishness or falsehood. So this is the impregnable fort. Okay. Okay. So moving to the next slide, Mahatma M says that men who join the society with the one selfish object of reaching power, making occult science their only or even chief aim, may as well not join it. They are doomed to disappointment as much as those who commit the mistake of letting them believe that the society is nothing else. It is just because they preach too much the brothers and too little, if at all, brotherhood that they fail. He who joins the society with the sole object of coming in contact with us, and if not of acquiring, at least of assuring himself of the reality of such powers and of our objective existence, was pursuing a mirage. So in this slide, you can see Mahatma M explains how the members are missing the real object of the Theosophical Society. Their aim is to learn occult science with the selfish interest to gain these occult powers for their own personal gains. Occult means, we know what occult means, it is hidden. Okay, so something which is not readily apparent, because it is not on the physical plane, it is not a physical phenomena, but it has its existence on the subtler planes of nature or in the inner constitution of man. Those are the occult powers. And that knowledge is what most of these people, the members in the early days, they wanted. Okay, so many early members, they mistook that the Theosophical Society is merely a school to teach this occult science. And this was a mistake. And Mahatma Ji says that they were sure to meet disappointment. These members, they talk too much about brothers and too little about brotherhood. Who are the brothers? The brothers are the Mahatmas, the masters of wisdom. They have this wisdom, this power, which they utilize solely for the welfare of humanity. Okay, and they have reached this stage after countless incarnations of self-discipline. Okay, so to reach that, it is a very lofty aspiration. Yes, we can have that, but more than that, we have to focus on brotherhood. Brotherhood, it is a fact in nature due to our common divine origin. Okay, children of one father, so they are brothers. So all the beings, we have a common divine source, the one absolute. Okay, so just as the masters are our elder brothers, so also we are the elder brothers to all the beings of the kingdoms below us, the animals, the plants, the mineral, and all the kingdoms below us. So brotherhood really means caring, sharing, and working selflessly for others. But instead of focusing on this, these members were fascinated to become adepts themselves. So they focused on the brothers, that is the Mahatmas. We have to live the brotherhood rather than being fascinated by the Mahatmas and their power and wanting to acquire it for our selfish purpose. That is a mirage. Now, moving further, we go to the next slide, where Mahatma Ji says that, did we move to the next slide? It is he alone who has the love of humanity at heart, who is capable of grasping thoroughly the idea of a regenerating practical brotherhood, who is entitled to the possession of our secrets. He alone, such a man, will never misuse his powers, as there will be no fear that he should turn them to selfish ends. A man who places not the good of mankind above his own good is not worthy of becoming our chela. He is not worthy of becoming higher in knowledge than his neighbor. If he craves for phenomena, then let him be satisfied with the pranks of spiritualism. Okay, so see, this letter is classified in the section probation and chelaships. And here Mahatma Ji is clearly telling that who is worthy of becoming a chela and who is not. So Mahatma M is explaining who deserves this knowledge. Only that man who has genuine love for humanity. Notice the word genuine love. Motive is very important. We may show that we love others for the reason of gaining name and fame. So we are doing an action, but motive is something different. So that is not genuine. A person who has genuine love for humanity in his heart, and he realizes and lives practical brotherhood. So we said that brotherhood is a fact in nature due to our common divine origin. But it is lost. This brotherhood, it is lost due to selfishness. Each one is working only for his own interest, even at the cost of harming the others. To regain this brotherhood, to re-establish it, the only practical way is to be absolutely selfless, to work altruistically. That is the highest ideal of the true theosophist. And Mahatma Ji says that only such a person deserves the secret of these wisdom teachings and the latent powers. Because then there will be no risk, there will be no fear that these powers and this knowledge, it can be misused. So only such a person is deserving. The person who is unable to put this larger good of humanity before his own personal good, he is not an appropriate candidate to become a disciple or a chela of the Mahatmas. And he does not deserve to gain more knowledge than the rest of his lot. Why should he be given? Because he is just like them. This wisdom and power is to be used only and only for spiritual evolution of humanity and to relieve its suffering. So if the man is fascinated by occult powers only due to the glamour, that is the charm that is the phenomenal effects of this occult power. If he is fascinated by that, then Mahatma M says, let him be satisfied by pranks of spiritualism. So pranks of spiritualism, we must remember that during that century, the 19th century, in the Western countries, spiritualism meant calling the spirit of the dead to communicate with the family which was still living. Now, this is a misconception. It is totally false, this communication of spirit. And what is the actual phenomena happening behind it that the people did not know? Okay. So this is what Mahatma M is saying, that unless you are a true altruistic theosophist, you do not deserve to become the chela. So we move to now the next slide. There was a time when from sea to sea, from the mountains and deserts of the north to the grand woods and downs of Ceylon, there was but one faith, one rallying cry, to save humanity from the miseries of ignorance in the name of him who taught first the solidarity of all man. So we know that in the history of mankind, time and again, so many Mahatmas, avatars, they have walked on this earth and they have given the teachings of the ancient wisdom to man, which was relevant to those times, those places, and those people, right? So there was also a time, that is 5 centuries before Christ. Prince Siddhartha, he was born. He was Siddhartha Gautam, who attained enlightenment and became Mahatma Buddha. So he transcended, he was born in this race, in our race, human race, and he transcended the human kingdom. He moved to the kingdom of the exalted beings, right? And when he gave his teachings to mankind, at that time, in this entire Indian region, right from sea to sea, that is from the Arabian Sea in the west to the Bay of Bengal in the east, and from the Himalayas and the cold desert in the north. Cold desert is the region of Ladakh and Tibet. So from that region down south up to Ceylon, which was covered with dense forested. So this entire region, his teachings were given and people followed those teachings, right? And he is the one who first taught the solidarity, that is the brotherhood of man. And this one faith existed at that time. And he said that all these miseries of man, they were due to ignorance. So in this slide, Mahatma M is actually referring to Mahatma Buddha. Okay. And Mahatma Buddha taught this solidarity or the brotherhood of man. First, he taught that, and then he gave the 4 noble truths, and then he gave the 8-fold path to relieve man of his suffering, which was due to ignorance. Okay. So Mahatma M then further tells Sinnett that these, you may say, are beautiful visions which were once realities on earth but had flitted away like the light of a summer evening. Yes, and now we are in the midst of a conflicting people, of an obstinate, ignorant people seeking to know the truth, yet not able to find it, for each seeks it only for his own private benefit and gratification, without giving one thought to others. So Mahatma M, he agrees. He says that yes, this land was once following the teachings of Mahatma Buddha, that was a reality. But just like in the summer season, there's a beautiful evening sunset and then the darkness of night falls. So similarly, the times changed, people changed, and they stubbornly held on to their views. They were in conflict with each other and they worked only for their own self-interest. So this darkness of ignorance came over them. So we must realize that, the truth, how can you realize the truth when you are practicing this separatism, right? So that is the ignorance, that each one is working only for his own good. We must realize that we are part of the whole, and what affects one affects the rest of us. And this universe is actually one whole living organism. So further, Mahatma M has mentioned in the letter, will you, or rather they, never see the true meaning and explanation of what great wreck of desolation which has come to our land and threatens all lands, yours first of all. It is selfishness and exclusiveness that killed ours, and it is selfishness and exclusiveness that will kill yours, which has in addition some other defects which I will not name. So Mahatma M is feeling sorry for those people. In their ignorance, they cannot grasp the doom which will befall on their land if they don't give up selfishness and exclusiveness. What is exclusiveness? It is separateness, separatism, to exclude the other people from your profit or from your gain, whatever you are doing. You are not working for the common good. That is exclusiveness. And we see that in our own region, here in India, history is witness that this Indian region has been ravaged by numerous invasions since ancient times. This land was once rich in culture, heritage, and prosperity, but it was rendered desolate. Okay, why? Due to the looting and marauding invasions and the constant internal conflict that was there among the princely states. So you see, internally the people, they brought on this misery on themselves. And the main cause for it was selfishness and treachery. So Mahatma M explains this to Sinnett, and you see these letters were written at that time when India was under the occupation of the British, right? And we know that Mahatma M has a great patriotic quality. He loves his country. In spite of this, we can see that he is holding the good of entire humanity above the love for his country. So he holds the good of entire humanity above any other virtue. And that is the reason he is giving these teachings to Sinnett and Hume, because he does not want that the same fate should befall their land. And that is why he wants this teaching to spread to the Western world. Such is the compassion of the masters of wisdom. Then we go to the next slide. The world has clouded the light of true knowledge, and selfishness will not allow its resurrection, for it excludes and will not recognize the whole fellowship of all those who were born under the same immutable natural law. This is a very important statement. Okay, fellowship of all those who were born under the same immutable natural law. Mahatma M says that selfishness has blinded us to the light of true knowledge. What is true knowledge? We know that we are a spark of the divine. We are the divine pilgrim who has started on this journey in the universe aeons ago, when the universe was manifested. And this spark of the divine, it is taking on this vehicle, it is taking on the garment of different forms, different bodies in successive incarnation to unfold its divine potential. And then it is journeying back to its source, that is unity. So this is the true knowledge. Okay. And this immutable law in nature, that is the one absolute, boundless reality, which is the source of all things in the universe. And that is the secret of our brotherhood, because all of us have our origin or our source in that one absolute reality. So this is the strongest message that Theosophy gives us again and again of brotherhood, that we have one divine source and we are all in this journey together going back to our source. So if we behave selfishly and we exclude the others from ourselves, we are actually hindering our own journey. We are not able to go back to realize unity, and we are not allowing the light of true knowledge to shine on us. So if we remove this separatism, if we realize the oneness of all, then we can achieve our goal. And this is the importance of brotherhood, practicing brotherhood. Now, this is the last part of the letter where Mahatma M is talking about Sinnett. He talks about Sinnett's good qualities. He says that you may see things. So Mahatma M has a very typical way of even. He will also mention about his negative qualities and at the same time also appreciate him for his good qualities. So let me read the slide. It says, you may see things in a false light and you do often so see them, but you do not concentrate all the light in yourself as some do. And that's one superior quality you possess over other Europeans we know. Your affection for KH is sincere and warm, and that is your redeeming quality in my eyes. Whatever happens, we too will ever remain your friends, as we would not blame sincerity, even when it is manifest in somewhat objectionable form of trampling upon a prostrated enemy, the hapless Babu. So we see here Mahatma M, he tells Sinnett that often Sinnett has an incorrect perception of things, right? But Sinnett is not self-centered. He looks at things from others' point of view also. So all the light is not concentrated in him. He also looks at things from other people's perspective. And that is one good quality because it was very uncommon in the Europeans. Okay. And Sinnett has genuine affection and sincere feelings towards Mahatma KH. So this is his redeeming quality. This absolves Sinnett of his faults. Even if he has some faults, Mahatma M is ready to forgive him because he has genuine affection and sincerity for Mahatma KH. And there is this person, hapless Babu, it is mentioned. So he was, in some letter it is given, he was the other Prayag theosophist. So we know what kind of feelings Sinnett had for the locals. And so he behaved in somewhat objectionable form with this person. But Mahatma M is saying that for that also you are absolved of that, and Mahatma M and Mahatma KH will forever remain his friend because of his sincerity. So these were the things that Mahatma M has mentioned and explained in this letter. And I think, yes, this is the end of letter 38. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivaji. Now I request Sister Minaki to summarize it in Hindi language. Yes.
नमस्ते. थैंक यू ब्रदर, थैंक यू सिस्टर. सभी को मेरा नमस्ते. महात्मा लेटर नंबर 38. यह पत्र मास्टर एम एपीएस सीनेट को एपी सीनेट को लिखते हैं इन फरवरी 1882. मास्टर केएच के रिट्रीट के दौरान वे अपना काम मास्टर एम को सौंपते हैं, जो कि ह्यूम और एपी सीनेट से पत्र व्यवहार करना और ये दोनों कुछ शब्दों को लेकर गलत फहमी कर लेते हैं. इसलिए मास्टर एम कहते हैं कि मास्टर केएच के वापस लौटने के बाद वे इस बात को लेकर कितने निराश हो गए. थियोसॉफी का काम जो उनके दिल के करीब है, उसमें ऐसे विवाद ह्यूम और सीनेट के अशोभनीय, अयोग्य, कड़वे, निंदापूर्ण, मूर्खतापूर्ण, व्यंगात्मक विचार जो गलतफहमी के शिकार है. फिर जब सीनेट मास्टर एम को हाइनेस जैसा उच्चतम मान देकर संबोधित करते हैं, तो वे कहते हैं कि इस मान का मैं कतई हकदार नहीं हूं और जो मुझे व्यंगात्मक लगता है. किसी भी उपाधि से हम अछूते हैं. वे बस विचारों और भाषणों की स्पष्टता और मूल निवासियों के प्रति आदर भाव चाहते हैं. फीमेल ब्रांच यानी महिला शाखा के बारे में वे कहते हैं कि मास्टर एम कहते हैं कि एचपीबी को यह प्रस्ताव नामंजूर होगा. शायद ही इस बारे में उन्हें राजी किया जा सकता है, क्योंकि उस समय की महिलाओं की स्थिति बहुत दयनीय थी. ना ही हम में से कोई ऐसी शाखा के संस्थापक होने को सहमत होंगे. फिर भी हम कबूल करते हैं कि इस तरह के आंदोलन का एक बड़ा परिणाम हो सकता है, क्योंकि महिलाओं का अपने परिवार के सभी सदस्यों पर, बच्चों और बड़ों पर अच्छा प्रभाव होता है. चूंकि ह्यूम और सीनेट सांसारिक लोग हैं, उन्हें इस दिशा में अनुभव है. आप इसमें मास्टर केएच की सहायता कर सकते हैं, ऐसे मास्टर एम कहते हैं. मास्टर केएच हमेशा महिलाओं को इस क्षेत्र में भर्ती करना चाहते थे, लेकिन अपने बहन के अलावा उन्होंने महिलाओं से संपर्क नहीं रखा. उनका एकमात्र स्नेह अपने देश और मानवता के प्रति है. संसार के संस्थापकों का अनादर और उनके प्रति तिरस्कार सोसाइटी के लक्ष्य और उद्देश्यों के प्रति अनादर या गलत धारणा ही उसके प्रगति में बाधा डालती है. उद्देश्यों के स्पष्टता की कोई गुंजाइश ही नहीं यदि उसे ठीक से समझा जाए. जिस उत्साह से मृग तृष्णा छलावे के पीछे आम लोग भागते हैं, उसके आधा उत्साह यदि वास्तविकता या सत्य को जानने की कोशिश करे तो मेंबर्स काफी कुछ कर सकते हैं. थियोसॉफी कोई शोभनीय वस्तु नहीं है. एक सच्चे थियोसॉफिस्ट और समाजसेवी के लिए यह दिव्य ज्ञान एक अभेद्य किले जैसा साबित होगा. जो लोग सोसाइटी में गूढ़ शास्त्र द्वारा अपना प्रभाव बढ़ाने की या सिद्धियां प्राप्त करने की आकांक्षा यदि रखते हैं और सोसाइटी इसके अलावा और कुछ भी नहीं ऐसी गलत धारणा रखते हैं, ऐसे लोग इसमें शामिल ना हो, उन्हें निराशा ही हाथ लगेगी. लोगों में सिर्फ सिद्ध संघ के बारे में दिलचस्पी है, उनके कार्य या विश्व बंधुत्व में नहीं. ऐसे लोग जिन्हें सिर्फ हमारे अस्तित्व, हमारी शक्तियां या हमसे संपर्क करने का एकमात्र उद्देश्य है, तो वह मृग तृष्णा के समान होगा, जिससे कुछ हासिल नहीं होगा. जिसके हृदय में मानवता के प्रति प्रेम भाव है और जो विश्व बंधुत्व को व्यवहार में लाता है, मानव के उत्थान का कार्य निस्वार्थता से करता है, वही हमारे रहस्य हासिल करने में सक्षम है। ऐसे मनुष्य ही अपनी शक्तियों का स्वार्थ हेतु दुरुपयोग नहीं करेंगे। ऐसे मनुष्य जो मानवता की भलाई को अपनी भलाई से ऊपर नहीं समझते, वह हमारे चेला बनने के लायक नहीं है। वह अपने संपर्क में आने वाले लोगों की तुलना में अधिक ज्ञानी होने के हकदार भी नहीं है। यदि वह पारलौकिक घटना देखने की लालसा रखता है, तो वह पाखंडियों के चाल से संतुष्ट हो जाए। एक समय ऐसा भी था जब पूर्व से लेकर पश्चिमी समुद्र तक, उत्तर के पहाड़ों और रेगिस्तानों से लेकर सिलोन के भव्य जंगलों तक एक ही विश्वास था, पुकार थी, श्रद्धा थी भगवान बुद्ध के नाम पर, जिन्होंने मनुष्य को एकात्म भाव सिखाया, मानवता को अज्ञानता के दुखों से बाहर निकाला। मास्टर प्रश्न करते हैं कि अब वह श्रद्धा कहाँ है? हमारे लोगों की भव्यता, दिव्यता और एकमेव सत्य की तेजस्विता कहाँ है? शायद आप कहेंगे, यह एक दिवा स्वप्न है, सुंदर कल्पना है, जो कभी वास्तविकता थी। अब हम परस्पर विरोधी संघर्षशील अज्ञानियों के बीच हैं, जो सत्य को जानना चाहते हैं, लेकिन जिसे पाने में वे सक्षम नहीं है, क्योंकि वे दूसरों का विचार किए बगैर केवल अपने निजी लाभ और संतुष्टि के लिए पाना चाहते हैं। मास्टर एम कहते हैं कि जो भग्नता, वीरानी और अवनति हमारे देश में आई है, वही हालत दूसरे देशों की भी होगी। सबसे पहले आपके देश की होगी। स्वार्थ और अलगावपन, श्रेष्ठत्व की भावना ने ही हमारे देश को मृतप्राय किया है, और इसी अवगुण से आपका देश भी मृतप्राय होगा। दुनिया ने सच्चे ज्ञान के प्रकाश को धूमिल किया है। स्वार्थीपन का अंधेरा इस प्रकाश को प्रकट होने नहीं दे रहा है, क्योंकि स्वार्थ ही अलगत्व की भावना दर्शाता है, जिसे प्रकृति के अपरिवर्तनीय नियम के तहत जन्म लिए सभी का बंधुभाव मान्य नहीं है। मनुष्य चीजों को उनके वास्तविकता के प्रकाश में नहीं देखता। आप भी अक्सर ऐसा करते हैं, लेकिन अन्य लोगों की तुलना में आप वास्तविकता को देखते हैं। अन्य यूरोपियन की तुलना में आप में यह श्रेष्ठ गुण है। मास्टर केएच के लिए आपका नेक और सच्चा स्नेह, यह मेरी नजर में आपका पवित्र गुण विशेष है। मास्टर सीनेट को यह आश्वासन देते हैं कि चाहे जो भी हो, हम दोनों आपके दोस्त बने रहेंगे। आपकी ईमानदारी, सच्चाई का प्रदर्शन चाहे आपत्तिजनक रूप में क्यों न हो, जिसका असर हमारे एक शिष्य पर हुआ है, जो है हेप्लेस बाबू, जिसे उन्होंने कहा है। नमस्ते, धन्यवाद।
Now we have completed the total discussion study of letter number 38. If anybody likes to ask any question, they can ask the question.
हेलो सर, नमस्कार सर। नमस्कार।
Yes.
मेरी आवाज आ रही है आपको? हेलो
हेलो, बोलिए।
ये लास्ट में ये हेल्पलेस बाबू कौन है, क्या बताया आपने?
हेल्पलेस बाबू,
हेल्पलेस बाबू
इसको कहा गया लास्ट वर्ड।
Yes.
He is asking. Yes.
So in the previous letter also, we have seen that Mahatma M, he mentions about the Prayag Theosophist. And this letter was also received in Allahabad. Okay, so Sinnett was perhaps in contact with these Prayag Theosophists, and we know what his feelings were towards the locals. So this person, he was a local person, and Sinnett's feelings were very objectionable towards him. तो वो उस लॉज के, इलाहाबाद लॉज के एक मेंबर होंगे.
अच्छा
मेंबर होंगे.
अच्छा, एक प्रश्न और, ऑल वुमेन सोसाइटी का क्या मतलब? अभी जो चल रहा है 75 से 82 तक, उसमें पुरुष भी है, सब है, तो क्या उसको कन्वर्ट करना चाहते थे ऑल वुमेन सोसाइटी करके?
कन्वर्ट नहीं करना चाहते थे, एक ब्रांच केवल विमेन के लिए बनाना चाहते थे, जो कि
अच्छा,
बाद में
अलग
नहीं
से।
बनाई गई.
माने कुथुमी साहब बनाना चाहते थे, यानी कुथुमी साहब की वो थी कंसर्न.
इट वॉज जस्ट आइडिया, मगर वो ब्रांच बनी नहीं.
अच्छा, आइडिया ऑफ मास्टर कुथुमी.
We do not know idea of whom, but it has been discussed in the letter. And
अच्छा.
जो previous letter है, उसमें भी इसके बारे में जिक्र है.
ओके ओके, थैंक यू.
Welcome.
Brother, there are many women benches in all over the world. Particularly, we have Adair women branch. So also during the time of Taimini in Allahabad, they have also women branch. Particularly, whatever reference and whatever knowledge we gain here, the women can be very helpful to popularize Theosophy to the general public as well as in the family also. That is the reference Mahatma given in this letter. Okay, we will close now this session. Thank you, Vibhaji. Now I request Mitalini to close the session. Anybody likes to ask any question? Gole madam, Sir Gole madam.
No, sir, it was
Ah.
very nice to listen, and Vibhaji has explained so fluently and simply, and Meenakshi has translated all the 11 points so shortly but completely. I'm thankful for both of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gole madam. Thank you, Sitalji.
Thank you.
Mitalini, kindly sing closing prayer.
असतुमा सद्गमय तमसुमा ज्योतिर्गमय ज्योतिर्मां अमृतं गमय सर्वे वै
सुखिनः सन्तु
सर्वे
सन्तु निरामया
सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु न कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति।
Thank you to all the participants. We hope in the next week we will continue our study. With these words, I am closing the link. Thank you to all.